If you have a story that you think would make a good episode, and you don't mind being recorded, please contact us via the email or Reddit links in the description. We have already started producing Season 3, and this time we're including your stories as well as ours.
All events depicted in this podcast are real. However, the names, locations, and some details have been changed for the privacy of those involved.
Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire, a podcast that above all things is about family. After I was born, Mum and Dad took me home from the hospital to a small 2-bedroom dwelling in an outback town, where Ellie and Cara were waiting to welcome their little brother home. 3 months later, all of us moved into a caravan on several acres of land in a little fishing village across the state. And over the next year, Dad would fill these acres with sheep and chickens and goats and build a 2-story, 3-bedroom house on top of them in the style of a log cabin. To this day, it still baffles me why he chose to build a 3-bedroom home on over 2 acres of land for 5 people to live in. After 8 years of living and working the hobby farm, both parents were tired of tending to the needs of the animals, so they decided to buy some nearby land and build their dream home, but this time on a much smaller block and with much fewer animals. This house would have a huge shed and a wood-fired sauna, but surprisingly, still only 3 bedrooms. Rather than move the family into a caravan while they were building the house as they had done before, Dad decided to purchase another cheap house for us to stay in. This house was a true shithole in a degenerate neighborhood, and we all hated it. But strangely, the thing that has always stuck in my head about this house was its address, 21 Loudy Street. And this is because, at the time that we lived there was a hit TV show starring Johnny Depp called 21 Jump Street that I was never allowed to watch, but I wanted to. Just 2 years after we left Loudy Street and moved into the newly built dream house, Cara left home, and then Aria was born. And another 2 years after that, our little family decided it was time to pack up our things and move across the country to the surfy town and into what was yet another 3-bedroom house. The positive aspects of this house are as follows. It was a short walk to the beach. It was a short walk to the shops. And it had a giant backyard with 2 highly productive mango trees. The negative aspects of this house are as follows. It was built next to a main road. It was built under a flight path. And after a few years living on the property, the 2 highly productive mango trees became non-productive. Also, Ellie never lived in this house. Shortly before we moved in, she moved away. So for the next 7 years, it was Mum, Dad, Aria and I under the same roof, and these are the years that I would consider the peak performance phase. During this time, a second investment property was purchased. This was a beautiful home in a quiet upmarket neighbourhood with a decent yard that backed onto a nature reserve, and that is also the house that Dad moved into after he split with Mum. To this day, Mum still lives in the flight path house. So why is it that I'm wasting your time with this long and overly descriptive oral history of our family's housing through the generations? Well, it's because I need you to understand something before I continue. I need you to understand that at some point, all 5 of the houses that I've listed here have been owned and then lost by Dad.
Because it's one of those things that really gets me angry. So I wanted to try and start with some facts rather than just emotion. And what I found is that you can go onto realestate.com and then you can go back and you can see
What, the worth of them? Or?
yeah, well, the worth of them, but like what they bought them for and also what they sold them for.
Right.
And it's really interesting. It also can be really like infuriating as well. Because you know that 21 Loudy Street?
Yeah.
Like that house, they lost money on it.
Have you ever looked at that place to see what it sold for?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about now. So I actually went back and had a look. And so they bought it for $68,000 in 1990, and then they sold it for $63,000 in 1991. So they lost $5,000 on it.
Oh, jeez.
But I remember Mum ripping into Dad about this. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I do, yeah. They used to get annoyed about it.
Mum used to give it to Dad. She'd always be like, "You said we'd make money buying this house, and instead we lost money."
I wonder why they didn't try to like rent it out or something. Just have that as a like another property.
I think they were broke because I think they'd spent the money they had buying the new land, and then they were losing money because they were building that house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I've done, and this is pretty cool. So I jumped onto realestate.com and I looked up all the houses that the parents have owned and sold over their life. And I took all those figures and then I added together the money they made. I minused away the money they lost, got that tally, and then I took that figure and I adjusted it for inflation. So now I have to the dollar the amount of money that Dad has owned and lost on houses in his lifetime.
Oh, wow.
So
And that total is $1,397,897.
oh, that he's lost.
Yes, that he's lost over his life because he has nothing now. So
Holy moly.
Oh, my God.
I was already pissed off before I had spent the time calculating Dad's property losses to the exact dollar. But now, having the figure right in front of me, it's downright infuriating.
You over your life could like build houses and, you know, buy and sell and be left with basically nothing.
I think it's just so fucking stupid. Like you would never let a house go like that.
I mean, you would if you're bettering yourself, right? But
How do you better yourself by losing your house?
well, if you're buying a bigger house or you're buying on a bigger block of land or a better, do you know what I mean?
No,
Like something better.
But that's different. That's selling a house and using the money to upgrade. You know, this is a different thing. He lost all of it.
Yeah.
He dunced himself completely. Like he has nothing. He has nothing left, and it's all from his own stupidity.
By the garbled, stuttering way that I'm getting my point across here, you can probably tell that this is something that I am very passionate about. And I think that comes from the fact that I only recently, as in the last few years, became a homeowner myself.
Like the house now I have, like knowing how much work it was to be able to get the loan and get the house I'm in now and then renovate it and get it right. Like I'd have to have someone would have to drag it from my, like I would murder someone. They would have to drag it from my dead hands. Like I just wouldn't give it up.
No. And it's your home.
That's the thing. You work hard on it. So just to go, here, you take it, like, or do you know what I mean? Like, it's just it blows my mind.
Even if it wasn't giving it away, like how difficult is it to like lose a house? Like I think about now, like even if we're not talking about giving it away, but just how many bad decisions would you have to make to not be able to keep your house?
Mm.
Yeah, that's it. Like you're getting it, you've probably almost paid it off, and then the amount of just stupid decisions you've made to really fuck it up.
It makes me so angry, like furiously angry still.
It actually really annoys me as well. Like I just even when it happened, I was just like, I'm so annoyed about it. I've gotten over it now, but I was really angry about it before.
I'm more angry about it now. Like I think with time has actually made it worse for me. I don't know. Like Aria, how do you feel about it?
If I think about it, it makes me angry.
I think you are way more chill about this than I am. I think about all of the wealth that Dad accumulated in his life and the fact that all of that wealth it has just been just given away, and the fact that it should have been passed down through our family. That's what I keep thinking about.
I never used to talk about Dad's house in this way, like it's something that we were entitled to. I used to think that was a selfish way to think, like I had a personal claim in something that I didn't earn. But in the years since Dad lost the house, my opinions have shifted and become stronger.
And I don't mean it in a selfish way. Like, I don't think that money should have come to me personally. I think it should have got passed down to better our family, which I think is important. And to be honest, I got that from Dad. Like, he always said that, right?
He was so big on leaving a legacy for the kids.
Yeah, and you remember the reason why he bought the Flight Path house with such a big backyard. You remember what he wanted to do with that backyard?
Yeah. He wanted to build 4 units on it, and each unit would be our inheritance.
It's also why he was so pissed at Mum for getting the house, because he's like, well, she's taken away your inheritance now. You remember all that, Ellie, right?
I did hear about it, but then he also, I don't know whether he changed his story at some point, because I remember him actually saying, I don't want to leave you anything or leave anybody anything because of what happened with his family. Like they took whatever he was meant to get from his parents or whatever when they passed away.
Did he really say that?
Yeah.
What? So I don't want to leave you anything?
Yeah, no, he said that he didn't want to leave anybody anything because he didn't want the same thing to happen.
What a fucking thing to tell your kids.
This little detail from Ellie I still find shocking. Not only is he telling his kid that she isn't getting any inheritance from him, but he's framing it in a way that makes it sound like he's doing her some big favour. But you know what? I shouldn't be surprised. This is pure dad
He
logic.
just decide that he doesn't want to give his kids anything. Like, I couldn't even do that now. So, like, for example, when we were trying to get Lily's residency sorted out here, we needed to get a will as one of the pieces of evidence. And when I filled out the will, we put down that if Lily was to die and I was to die, then I put down Aria. Like, all of the possessions in the house and everything would go to her. I didn't put you on there, Ellie.
Fuck you.
But,
Fuck you.
But I figured it would get spread around. I figured it would get spread around.
I
that
get
sounds.
fucked over so bad with that sort of shit.
I didn't realize that till I just said it. But yeah.
I know. I was listening and I was like,
I didn't realize how bad
is
that
this
sounded.
right?
That's great.
You're still not the favourite sister. Oh
Fuck
my
you.
it's-
God.
That's
but
all I'm saying.
Now that I've cut together the first 10 minutes of this episode,
Share everything out.
I realise that I haven't done a very good job of hiding how the story is going to end. You know Dad is going to lose the house. You even know that he's going to give it away. And you probably have guessed who he gives it to, too. I think that's pretty obvious by now. What you don't know is that a recent evaluation of the house had it listed with high confidence for over $900,000 and with low confidence for over $1 million. But of course, now you know that as well. So what is the point of listening to this episode at all, I hear you asking? If I already know what happens, well, maybe this episode isn't for you. Did you ever think of that? Maybe this episode is for me. And this is a story that I need to tell to get it off my back so it doesn't weigh me down and make me become a bitter and twisted and resentful old man. Because I do think that is a possibility here. But also, I do want the episode to be entertaining for you. That is something that's important to me. And I think it should be. After all, who doesn't love a good breakup story?
No. But the first thing that I want to work out is from each of us, where was it that we first heard about Dad signing his house over to Mary? Like, when did that first come up?
I think it was Christmas. That Christmas, that it really hit me in the face.
You're talking about the awful Christmas, right? The one where we confronted Mum.
Yeah.
That one, I didn't take that one seriously. I think I thought it was more that Mary had invested in the house. I didn't take it that she now owned the house. I never took it that way.
Yeah, I think I was a bit the same. I didn't think that she had owned the house, but then he kept saying, didn't he? He kept going, this is Mary's house. This is Mary's house.
Yeah.
And it didn't click to me.
No, because the signing of the house over, that didn't happen until much later. That's like when he's getting hip surgery. So I think back then at Christmas, it was nothing. Like maybe they talked about it or something, but it was nothing official that happened.
No, he'd wrote on a piece of paper that if their relationship ever ended, that she would get the house, and he signed it.
Is that real? That's not real.
It never ceases to amaze me that after all I have seen and everything I know about Dad, he still has the ability to leave me speechless.
Because I saw the piece of paper.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever. What is that?
That's like.
Is that even a legal document though? Like,
No.
No, it's not. But it's him giving
It's
his word
fucking childish
to
bullshit.
Mary. That was his way of giving the word. But he didn't sign the house over until after the mental ward because he said that the house needs to be appraised. So then he'll sign the house over and get his name off it.
Clearly, Dad and Mary had been dropping hints for years about their plans for the house that we had all missed. But now that we do have the clarity of hindsight, I want to get some things straight. So please, bear with me here as I put on my investigator hat and dig into the details.
So you're thinking that it was during the infamous Christmas that was when Dad had signed this handwritten contract that he made with Mary?
Yes.
How long were they even together for at that point?
Not even a full year yet.
So, like, Like what? Like 6 months? Like 10? I think.
Because Christmas was about 11 months into the relationship. So I'm thinking it was a few months before that. So 7 months, maybe 8.
Well, then it makes me wonder, do you think that Mary getting the house was part of the negotiations for the relationship?
No, I don't think so.
See, I feel like it's not that unlikely.
Mm.
Like, she's higher value female. He's a declining elderly male. Dad was in his late 50s. She was in her, I think, early 40s, so she was much younger. He's got this horrible divorce behind him. He's got kids to the other marriage. He's clearly got a drinking problem, and he smokes, and Mary didn't drink or smoke. Like, what is the draw there? I don't understand.
Well, she was still going through legal stuff with her ex when her and Dad were together as well. So I don't think she was like in the best place either.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that I'm certain it's this, but I don't know. I just, apart from the house, I don't really see what else he did have to give. I mean, maybe true love, but I don't know.
I see what you mean as well. Like,
right?
it almost looks as though that maybe that's what she did.
I do understand Ellie's interpretation of what I'm saying here, and that it was Mary who had set this up from the beginning to get Dad's house. But that's not actually what I'm trying to convey.
No. I don't think that Mary got together with Dad with the plan of taking his house from him. I don't think that. I more think that Dad used the house as a tool to keep her.
Almost like a prenuptial thing.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I promise I will sign this house over to you when we break up or whatever. Like,
That's really messed up.
Well, just think about it. They start dating, things are going okay. Dad gets a bit paranoid that she's going to leave him. And then so he basically puts the house down as collateral. So here, I'll sign this over to you. And then she can't leave.
If you're thinking that I'm reaching here, and that this theory is leaning a little too far into the realm of conspiracy, I want you to take a second to remember what happened last time that Mary tried to break up with Dad. He ended up putting a noose around his neck as an incentive for her to stay. But I don't want you to think I'm taking any of the blame off of Mary here. Believe me, I'll have plenty of shots to fire at her before this tale is told. But before I get to that, I still have a few more unanswered questions to solve.
So I just want to get this clear before we move on. So when Dad started dating Mary, he was in perfect health. This was before all of the stroke and the hip surgeries and the blood thinners and all that.
Yeah, he was working.
So then why did he need Mary's help to keep the house? Why couldn't he have kept the repayments up himself?
Oh, he likes to say it was the child support.
You've got the figures for his child support, right? Didn't you get those, Aria?
You might notice that Aria has some impossibly detailed figures regarding Dad's finances during the separation.
Yeah, so I've got my notes up.
And you should know that all of these come from several undercover fact-finding lunches that Aria spent with Mum in preparation for this episode.
So originally he was meant to pay $250 a week, but he only wanted to pay $50. So then the $200 would go into the back pay each week.
What? So Mum was happy with him paying just $50 a week then?
Yeah, the child support agency rang and said, oh, he only wants to pay $50 a week. And it was a lot of back and forth. And Mum's like, just let him do the $50 a week. Like, I'm sick of this.
What the hell? It's like a deadbeat dad.
He's only paying $50 a week.
Yeah.
That is not going to make you broke.
It's easy for us to say this now, not knowing how much debt had been left for Dad to pay off when he received the house in the separation.
So the house, they bought it for $150-ish.
But the thing is, we do have that information.
And there was $60,000 left on it when they separated. And then he got with Mary about 5 years later.
That's right. In just 5 years, Dad went from having $60,000 left to pay off a house that was worth $150,000 to being so broke that he needed to be bailed out by his new girlfriend. And if you think that with inflation, these numbers might favour Dad, you would be wrong.
Let me check something. Inflation calculator. There it is there. So, how much? So there was 60,000 left on the house?
Yeah.
That's fucking irritating. 60,000. And that was in what year?
So when they split up was, 2005 they broke up. I have it in the notes here.
So by today's standards, he would have had $97,200 left on the house.
How much?
$97,200 with inflation.
Okay.
So like really nothing.
Yeah, really nothing.
I've got $550,000 on my home loan right now, and that's not that much.
So if Dad was making decent money at work, and he only had to pay $50 per week in child support, and had only a minimal amount left to pay on his mortgage, then the question still remains. Just where did all of Dad's debt come from?
So we know that he didn't piss all his money away on child support. Another possible one that I have here is dental, because Ari, you had some pretty hectic teeth back in the day, and I remember Dad saying, well, he actually told me that he had to refinance the house to pay your dental bills. So that's definitely
Wait,
one.
but he must have been having financial problems before the child support, because I got my braces off early because he cracked the shit at the orthodontist because it was taking so long. So I never actually got the full finished like orthodontic treatment, which is why I've still got like a gap in my front teeth. Like I still had a few more months to go, but he rang the dentist and abused him because he said the dentist was lying about how long it would take.
Because he's an expert.
But it was just that my teeth were moving quite slow. And so when I went to get them off, I didn't even know. I went there and they're like, we're taking your braces off today. And I'm like, what? I thought I still had a few months to go.
Oh my God.
And it was very weird. Like it was like, oh no, Mum's like, oh no, the braces are coming off today. But I was like, oh, I've still got like a gap in my front teeth.
I love the priorities.
So
Why would Mum agree to that though? If she would have seen
I
that.
think she was embarrassed with the orthodontist because Dad abused the orthodontist.
Man, he would have abused
So
those dentists.
That's why I've still got a gap in between my two front teeth.
To be honest, I didn't actually notice you still had a gap in your teeth. I know you used to.
I used to have like a 50-cent coin gap.
Yeah,
You could put a
definitely
50-cent
did.
coin through it.
Park a bike in there.
Yes.
You could.
Yeah.
My bunny rabbit teeth.
I didn't know that a smile at you will kick a field goal.
You could definitely. I was so excited to get braces because I was ready to get rid of that gap. And then I still look at it like every day. I look at that gap in between my teeth and I'm like, ah.
Like, fuck you, Dad.
Now you've told me, I'm never going to stop looking at it. I can't wait to see you again so I can make fun of you for your...
I can still whistle through it every now and again as well.
Whistling through your gap too.
Whistling through my
But
teeth.
anyways, it really shits me that. Like, just let your daughter finish getting braces. Like, come
I
on.
can't believe that.
Yeah, sorry, it's a sore spot for me.
I looked up the cost for traditional metal braces in Australia, which is the ones that Aria had. These range between $4,000 and $12,000, which is expensive, but ultimately not enough to send Dad broke. And after debunking this theory, we were able to move on to what we all think is likely the culprit of Dad's financial
I
decline.
definitely did gamble a lot because every now and again I'd go over and he'd just hand me like $100 or something, and he's like, "Oh, I won big on the pokies or something, so here's $100." And I'd be like, "What the hell?" And then he'd just have these wads of cash sitting around on his kitchen bench and stuff. But then sometimes there would be no wads of cash. It was very strange.
I'm wondering if he was giving it to you, giving it away so he didn't spend it on gambling. I wonder if that's his way of trying to, like...
No, that's what gamblers do, is they win big and then they share a bit of their wealth so they can brag about it.
This sounds right to me. I think he probably just blew all of his money on the pokey machines, right?
And betting, because he liked to put bets on.
Oh, yeah, he did. He used to, when he had a drink, he used to put dogs and...
On the dog races.
Yeah, bulldog face
That's right.
running in the laps.
So, yeah, if I had to make a bet, no pun intended, I'd wager that Dad is in fact a degenerate gambler. But at the same time, he is eerily good at hiding it. Because while it is obvious to me now, after I've laid out all the evidence, it's not something that I've ever thought before, unlike the next opinion that you're about to hear me give, which I have been chewing on for years.
I can't help but think that what she did is despicable. I do get that Dad went to Mary and said, "Hey, I'm broke, can you bail me out? And if you do bail me out, you'll get the house." And then she went, "Yeah, of course. We're in a relationship, even though it's just started, but of course I'll help you out." But what I don't understand is you'd at the very least, you'd say, "Hey, we're just starting this relationship. It's not a healthy thing to start the relationship with all this baggage. And you've got multiple kids. 2 of the kids have owned houses before. One of them is old enough to own a house. I would at least say, before we do this deal and before I take this house off your hands, let's have a meeting with the kids." Like, does that not seem reasonable to all of us? Like, does that not seem like what you would do? It just...
She knows all of us as well.
Well, that's another thing. Like, she was in contact with us. Regular contact. Like, you would at least ask us or let us know or something.
Yeah, who I'm friends with, I text with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's.
And I was still living at home at that point.
And she never texted and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm taking ownership over your dad's house." She never said that to any of us.
No.
In fairness, it's like that's their business, right? So like it's not really for us to sort of be in on. But
How is it not for us
if
to
it's
be?
something gigantic
Yeah,
like that, I mean that's massive.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It feels predatory to me.
That word, predatory, it's one that often comes to mind when I think of Mary and the way she took the house. But of course it would. I'm so close to all of this and so angry about it. How could I not lay some of the blame on her? Which is why, in the interest of neutrality, I decided to get an outsider's opinion.
I think it was like it's really bad that she's like taking advantage of all of that, and like she took the house away from all of you guys.
And who better to chime in on this than my wife Lily, who has listened to me bitch and moan about all of this for quite literally years now.
But I also think like she had the chance, why not? Like he's a stupid old man who would just give away everything he has to a stranger because he's not family.
I think one time when I was talking to you about this and I was saying how horrible it was that Dad lost everything, and you cut me off and you said, "Lucas, he didn't lose anything. He gave it all away."
Yeah, he absolutely, he didn't lose anything. He's given everything away. It's all been his choice. He just chose to give it away to this stranger.
And I don't think that Lily's wrong here, which is why sometimes when I'm feeling super pissed off at Mary, I'll stop and I'll ask myself, why are you blaming her? It's your moronic father who did this, not her. She was just opportunistic. I find that these thoughts are especially prevalent when I remember that I did offer to pay off Dad's debt for him before Mary had appeared.
Typical Dad fashion. He's like, "Mum's sending me broke. I'm going to lose the house. I'm going to have to sell it and move into a caravan. That's going to happen soon." And then I'm like 24 years old, I'm at uni, and I said, "Well, you've got me, you've got Ellie, you've got Cara. We'll all be happy to pitch in. It's going to be our inheritance anyway, so we can pay the mortgage for you, get you back on track again, and that's it. And then you'll be set." And I brought this up a few times, and every time I brought it up, he would just be like, "No," and he'd just brush it. He wouldn't really give a reason. He would just brush it off.
I think this is why I suspect that Dad was using the house as a way to trap Mary, because he had better options, but he chose her.
Whatever. At the end of the day, he didn't want us to have it, so what can we do about it?
But that doesn't mean that I absolve Mary of all the blame, because the further along this story gets, the worse Mary
The
looks.
fact that the first time that I ever heard that Mary had a claim in Dad's house was when he was in the psych ward after having tried to commit suicide. Like, had you two heard about this before then?
That's the first time she ever talked to me about it.
And it's when she completely was in control of everything, right? She was breaking up with him. He was in a psych ward.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like that's what a horrible person to do that though.
You might remember from the previous Mr. and Mrs. God episode that when Dad left the psych ward, he wasn't talking to any of us
Riggins
kids.
was really like, "Stuff your dad, he's horrible, like he's put you through so much pain, so don't have anything to do with him."
Yeah, but you did though, because me and Ellie, we lived out of town and Dad wasn't talking to us. So
Yeah, you had all the knowledge about what was going on.
all the information that we got was from you.
Yeah.
No, I think I've blocked a lot of it.
It was about the surgery, I think.
That's right. I think he called me first about the surgery, and then I said I'm pretty sure I said I'll come over and see him.
It turns out that in the few short months since Dad had arrived back at home, some serious decisions had been made about his future. The first being that he was finally off the waiting list for his hip replacement surgery, which was great news.
So I think it was the next day or that weekend after the phone call, I went and saw him and then found out about the transit van and everything.
The transit van news, however, wasn't so great.
And he said he's going to do the van up and then he's going to travel. And then that's what he wants to do. And he's going to sign the house over to Mary and he wants to travel.
I remember the phone call when you called and told us what was happening. And you're like, he's bought a second-hand transit van. It's this piece of shit, and he's converting it.
And I argued with him and said, why don't you just buy a camper van? Because the amount of money you're spending to make it into a camper van would probably cost the same amount as buying a camper van. And he argued, no, it's cheaper. It'll be cheaper in the end.
I'm not sure if it comes across in the retelling, but all of these discoveries, were heartbreaking. Our elderly father, on the verge of a full hip replacement, was about to lose everything that he'd worked for his entire life.
I just remember us being so worried about how he was going to heal properly, like in the van. Like,
Yes, that's what we were worried
Yeah.
about. Him stretching his body out.
Because I remember getting in, like, because we've got a van too, and I remember getting in ours and laying in the back just to see if I could, because I think I'm shorter than him.
But you did it on the phone to us, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I laid in the back of mine, and I was like, he's not going to be able to stretch his legs out or anything, but and we were worried because after he had surgery.
Your neck was all creaked up.
And I remember after that conversation, you went and spoke to him, right?
Yeah, and I was arguing with him going, why are you signing the house over? You're entitled to half, because it's like a relationship. You're entitled to half of all the stuff. And he goes, no, I promised her the house. She bought that house. And I said, you wouldn't have had that much left on the mortgage. And he's like, no, I did.
Your child support, your dental bills, you sent me broke.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was all that.
Yeah, and he told you about the solicitor too. He'd spoke to his solicitor.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. He told me that his solicitor was saying, don't sign the house over. You're actually entitled to much more. You're entitled to half her business, half the house, half her unit that she had in the city, because she had like quite a large amount of wealth.
And I just want to be clear here. None of us were in favour of Dad taking half of everything Mary owned. We wanted what was fair, and that didn't seem fair. We didn't even want Dad to get half of everything that Mary had acquired while they were a couple, which, by the way, included her ownership of the pseudoscience clinic that she was a managing director of. We just wanted our dad to have a place to retire that was warm and comfortable and not rolling around on 4 fucking wheels. And even if we had to fight and scheme, we were going to make that happen.
So we all were like constantly on this group chat trying to figure out a strategy to make sure that Dad doesn't lose the house.
And then I think in the background we were all like, okay, so what can we do? Can we go see if we can find some lawyers? Didn't we all have certain jobs we were going to do as well, just to go and see where we stood legally? Or
Yeah, assigning tasks. That was the first thing we did.
Yes.
And mine was staying in contact with Mary to see her take on things.
You were the inside agent. That was the thing.
And I was always very nice on the text messages.
As impressive as all of this organisation may sound, our first course of action was nothing more than an onslaught of daily phone calls that each of us made to Dad in an offensive manoeuvre that I like to refer to as the Groundhog Day approach.
Well, every time we'd start to bring up the housing situation, he'd crack the shits and tell us it's Mary's house and don't worry, it's all going to be sorted. And we're like, how's it going to be sorted? Where are you going to live? And then he'd like get the shits and we'd get off the phone and then we'd be like, all right, he gets the shits when you say this, so maybe you can say it around like a different way.
And after a few weeks of unsuccessful phone calls, we decided it was time to try a new plan of
And
action.
then one of us had this bright idea of let's all send him a text message because he can't ignore a text message. He's going to have to read it. You remember this?
Yes, I do.
But these weren't just simple text messages. They were highly edited digital letters, each one relating to the other, and designed to strike a different emotional response in Dad. We sent these texts to him simultaneously, and we truly believed that he would not be able to ignore them.
And do you remember what his response was when he read the text messages that we sent him?
It's none of your business.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, he wasn't very forthcoming with any information at all.
Oh, I found the text that I sent him.
Really?
He didn't reply to my message, actually, at all.
He might not have.
It's crazy you've still got a record of all this.
Oh, this is an insane text message.
Read it.
Hi, Dad. Just heard that you're going to give Mary everything just like you did with Mum. I don't understand why you would willfully be leaving yourself worse off than before you met Mary, especially when you're entitled to get half. Getting to keep just your home would be the very least you could have, deserve, and earned from over 10 years in a relationship. I don't know if it's because you are drinking so much that you aren't thinking about the future or what the future would be like for you. I've heard from Mary that you're getting drunk and sitting under your carport hurling abuse at neighbours. If your health gets worse, how long do you think you can live in a caravan for? How long before you will quite literally have nothing and become a burden on others? If you give away everything you worked for your whole life, enough to have ruined your body, You will have lost every ounce of respect I have for you, and I will not be around to watch you make an absolute fool of yourself.
Jesus. That is brutal.
It's hardcore.
But
So it was really angry.
but all of our messages were like that, and not just like that. We made sure they were all different and brutal in different ways.
Looking back on it now, I'm not sure why we ever expected these text messages to work. It's not like anything from Dad's past would give us the impression that backing him into a corner would do anything more than make him more steadfast in his convictions. But of course, we didn't learn our lesson here either. And our next strategy was even more direct and aggressive.
Do you remember what the next one was after the text messages? Do you remember what our next attack was?
It was through Mary?
No, we called him.
Ah.
It was the group chat.
Oh, we did. It was like the intervention.
We had that group chat.
Because wasn't he talking to one of us, but we were all there?
I think it was Aria, because you knew how to bring us in.
Yeah. I mean, I was the little agent for everything, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Jesus.
You were there. You were there. Like, we were close.
It was a really stressful time. Like, oh, God.
Because what happened was you were on the call with Dad, and then once you were on there with him, then you
merged the calls.
Yeah, you patched us all in.
Yeah.
And do you remember how things went once we got in?
I'm pretty sure that you took the lead on it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was that I uncorked my verbal attack on Dad.
And so I said to him, so that's it. You're just going to give everything away to Mary. That's what you're going to do here. And he said, well, she paid for it. And I said, she paid for your house. And he said, yeah, she did. And I said, tell me how much. Tell me to the dollar how much she paid you for that house. And he said, no, over the course of time, she's paid for things and it equals far more than the house. And I said, yeah, but you're in a relationship together. Sometimes you pay for things. You're not tallying up every single thing. And he said, no, that's how it is. It's always been like that. And I said, if that's true, then she's a con woman and you've been done by a fucking con woman.
Didn't he keep saying that it was a business? This is a business.
It's a business transaction.
No, I actually said to him, it's a relationship. It's not a business transaction. And he said, no, that's what it is. And I said, please, Dad, have more respect for yourself than that. To think that your whole relationship is just boiled down to dollars and cents and nothing more.
He said, I'm a man of my word. I promised that I'd give her that house. And I kept saying, it's a relationship. You've both put things in this. She wouldn't be where she is if she didn't have you. So I don't think it's fair that you leave yourself with nothing.
Yeah, and then I said, look, if this is truly a business transaction, let's make it a business transaction. Right now, we're going to calculate every single thing that she's ever spent on you, whatever stem cells, money transfers, whatever it is. Then we're going to work out everything that you've ever spent on her. So all the work you did building her offices in Sydney, all the renovations on the house, we're going to work out all of that. And then we're going to take those totals, we're going to minus your total away from hers, and then that figure to the dollar, that's how much you owe her. And then you're going to sell the house, you're going to give her that exact number, and whatever's left, that's yours.
Even now, as I look back, I still think this would have been the fairest way to resolve this whole situation. But unfortunately, Dad didn't agree.
And he said, Lucas, this is a business transaction. It's always been a business transaction. And then I gave up.
But I didn't really give up. Not completely. I just gave up on Dad. I think we all did.
I don't know. I think we felt a bit defeated after that phone call, but his surgery was coming up and we were like, gotta let him have a bit of a break. We don't want him to be too stressed out.
I didn't want him to die during the surgery, so I think that's like
Yeah.
the thing. Like, I don't think it's like give him a break. I think it's like Dad's going into surgery. It's major surgery. Like a hip replacement's a big thing.
Yeah. Just wanted to give him a little bit of a rest from all of that.
I just didn't want him to be cramped in that van with nowhere to
Like,
live.
yeah, he grew up with nothing, or he came from nothing, right? Like in China with nothing, and then it was like he's almost back to nothing again.
And he'd worked so hard his entire life and he'd wrecked his body. And then it's like, what have you got to show for it? You just lost everything. Like, it's sad.
And from these hopeless thoughts came a new and exciting plan of attack.
So we were brainstorming, how can we get a place for Dad to live so he doesn't end up sleeping on the streets pretty much. And I don't know whose idea it was, but we were like, we'll find a place for him to live and then we can pay the mortgage for him. And so he's got a place to live, but also will have like an inheritance afterwards. So he doesn't have to feel like he's owing us anything because, you know, it's going to be for us in the end.
And so we went to work, finding Dad the perfect retirement cottage.
They were really good and they weren't that expensive and they were nice. Some of them were right near the water so he could go fishing and he had like a space for his boat or whatever. We also made sure that they all had like a shed area or something because he likes to tinker. So we really, yeah.
And we also found a location that was equal distance for all of us to get to him because we wanted to share the duties of looking after him as he got older. And also, I don't think we've mentioned this, but he had alienated everybody in the surfy town. He had no friends left there.
And we made sure it had a couple of bedrooms as well. Like, we made sure that there was space for us to go visit him and stay.
Yeah, just hanging out with him. And
Yeah, and we were really excited about it too. We were like, this is the perfect solution.
yeah, this
This is a win for every single person.
We've finally thought of something that, you know, we can actually achieve and do for him, and then, you know, he won't be just living in a van, you know.
We all loved this idea. No more stress, no more arguments. And it meant that we could take care of Dad while creating some new positive memories with him, something that none of us had experienced in over a decade. But as perfect as this solution seemed to us, before it could become a reality, we needed to get one more person on board.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you saying we're going to give her a call and we're going to try and, you know, sort it out.
You see, we had enough money between us to take on the mortgage repayments, but not enough for the deposit. And we knew Dad would never go for the idea. Not if it came from us, but if it came from Mary, he probably would. We also knew that Mary had paid for Dad's transit van, and that she still owed him money for the house. All I needed to do now was to get Mary on the phone and convince her that Dad moving into that cottage was in her best interests.
Look, for me, the whole thing seemed like an easy pitch because I was so excited about the idea. I just assumed that she was going to go for it. And so gave her all the details, sent her the links to the cottages, and we had a chat about that. And then I said, look, we're happy to take over the mortgage. We just need $30,000 for the deposit. And we don't want you to pay for it. We believe that you owe Dad some money for the house anyway. So if you could talk to him and convince him that this is a good plan, then we think he's got a real shot of going for it because he won't listen to us. And she said, yeah, you're not in his good books right now. He thinks that you guys just want to take all his money. And I really had to bite my tongue because I just wanted to tell her to go eat a fat dick.
Yeah, she just wants the
He's
house.
giving everything away. What has he got?
Yes, all those things were going through my head, but I didn't say any of that. I kept it together, and then I said, look, I think this could be a really good thing for all of us. And then she said, I don't know, you know, he really wants to travel. You know, he's very nomadic, and I always say to him that he's the Russian Aboriginal.
I hate that so much.
And I was like, I'm sorry, he's what? And she said, like, you know how the Aboriginals, they would always travel around everywhere? That's what he wants to do. He just wants to travel around. And that's what I call him. I call him my big Russian Aboriginal.
I fucking hate that. Stop saying that.
I fucking hate it so much. It's like racist too, right?
Yeah, it's super racist.
It makes me cringe. Like, oh.
Well, and the thing was, it sucked because I really wanted to go off at her, but I had to bite my tongue because I really wanted to get this deal across the line. So I just sort of said, look, I don't think traveling is a good idea for him because he's old and he's about to have surgery, and also COVID. I think COVID was going on.
It was right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, and also it was getting cold.
Yeah, it was winter as well.
Yeah, like all of this stuff. But look, I'm getting pissed off now, so it sounds like it got really aggressive, but it actually didn't. Like when I got off the phone, I actually thought I'd convinced her. I was pretty hopeful that she was going to go for it.
Yeah, I remember you getting off the phone and saying you've told her about it. She seems open to the idea. But we were getting really excited about it.
Yeah, and also I was texting her because we'd find new places and I'd text them to her, and she was actively texting me back, like sounding like she was interested. But now it makes me wonder if she was just keeping me on the hook until all the paperwork went through for the house.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
After the house was officially signed over to Mary, she stopped answering my texts and my calls. Aside from one sneaky Facebook message about her drinking habits, that I sent her in Season 1, Episode 7, which surprisingly she did answer, but I don't think that counts. Because at this point, I had already lost. Lost the house, lost my relationship with Dad, lost my pride. Although, writing these words now, I do wonder which of these losses is specifically bothering me, or if I'm just mad that I lost in general. And if this is the case, and it's just my ego that's bruised, am I looking for closure, or am I looking for revenge? I mean, if I really think about it, the sneaky text message that I sent to Mary about her drinking, it's starting to look a lot like a prank letter about a White Album that Dad sent to Mum. And if that is what I'm doing, then I need to knock that shit off now, because that is embarrassing. Which means that it's all up to me, a grown man who needs to let go of his baggage. And do I think that I'm capable of this? Well, I'm not sure. But I do know this. Something did happen to me recently, and I think it's the kind of thing that changes everything.
Right
I
now.
think I'm recording too.
I'm recording now too.
What about you, Elle? Are you here?
I'm recording.
Okay,
I'm
that's
30
great.
seconds in.
Cool. Okay, so let's just get this done. So as you know, I've been having issues finishing the edit on this episode, but I think Lily has a story that I think should be able to help us sort it out. So I don't know, Lily, are you good to go? You know what you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Just go for it when you're ready.
Okay. So congratulations, you're gonna be aunties.
What? Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my god!
Holy
Congratulations!
cow balls! That's
Yes.
awesome!
Oh, that's amazing!
You are recording, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Papa Lucas.
Next time, I finally decide to talk about mine and Lily's wedding. And I remember the next part very clearly, because at that moment, as I watched the careless smile across my new bride's face as she danced with the nieces and nephews, I knew that I had made a terrible mistake, and that the most important thing, more than all the apologies and reconciliations in the world, was to keep Lily happy. At least for that one night. That's next time on Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire. If you enjoyed today's episode, or if you think that you might want to be part of a future one, please let us know about it in the email or Reddit links that are in the description. Walking on Eggshells with an Emotional Vampire is produced, recorded, and edited by me, Lucas Shaw. Thanks for listening.